Okay, just thought I'd show you this bipod. It is significantly chunkier than I expected. It's pretty heavy too, because these are great big solid bits of anodized aluminium, if I had to guess. They've had some sort of satin blasting to remove any machining marks. I assume these are just bare aluminium. I'm not sure if these are magnetic. Get another magnet. No, these are just aluminium as well. That's steel. Anyway, yeah, first impressions, very chunky. I'm not sure about these feet. I'm not sure what they're made of. I think they're just rubber, or some sort of plastic. The feet could definitely be better. I'm pretty sure they're just plastic. But, yeah, carbon fibre tubes. I love the screaming children in the background. Okay, so there's definitely a bit of wobble here. So how the adjustment goes, you press this collar moves across and it slides down the leg. So it looks like slightly, maybe 1 mil thick carbon fibre legs, but the thing is still pretty heavy even though it's got carbon fibre tubes. Now this adjustment, although up and down, is reasonably solid. You can twist it because obviously it's just a spring-loaded collar on a slot on a tube. I think they've tried to prevent the twisting a little bit with these grooves in the legs, which these screws go into, and there's some other screws here which I presume is what locks this adjustment assembly onto the carbon fibre tube. These grub screws, all the grub screws I've tried, every hex screw I've tried on here is it appears to be Loctite in place because none of them will move. I grabbed my collection of Allen wrenches, torque hex wrenches, whatever you want to call them. None of them will move, so it's quite well put together. Yeah, the feet could be better. Pretty good adjustment. I think once we've got this on a rifle, you wouldn't want any more. It shrinks down quite compact. Grab a ruler. So you're looking at about 8 inches compact length, and then fully extended goes out to 11 inches. There's plenty of adjustment brackets on here. They appear to be about 5 mil apart, 6 mil perhaps. Like I said, there's a little bit of wiggle. The leg adjustment could definitely be better, but it's nice and compact for what it is, and it's easy to, it's not spring loaded or anything, like it doesn't shoot out when you press the button. So, but it's nice and tough and durable. Anyway, then you've got notches on the back of these. I'm going to call them hip plates, and then when you press this button here, it pops that pin out to a slotted section, so you can twist that round, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 positions, so you can have like fully vertical front and rear, and then you've got 2 incline positions, and then just fully vertical. So that's pretty nice, and they all lock into place. This is because, like I said, this is all chunkier than I expected, so it's a lot more durable. I'd say this whole thing is about 25% bigger than what I expected, judging from the pictures. I've not tried putting it on a stock yet, but this quick release adjustment seems pretty standard. It's got a brass little plate for the friction locking. There's a spring in here somewhere. I'm not sure where the spring is. That pops it back out. Where is the spring? It's definitely spring loaded, because when you do that it shoots open. This plate on the other side moves. That's the actual clamping piece. Where's the spring? Oh, there's the springs. Okay. So, where the clamping plate moves, there's two springs in here. See if I can position the light. There you go. You can just see the reflection catching off them. One there and one there. That's a nice, clever place to put them. And then you can adjust the how tight the locking QD is. There's a screw thread just here going into the clamp plate, so you can adjust it in and out a little bit to account for different rails or how tight you want this QD to be. Shouldn't be any problems. There's no notches, but this main cross pin here will serve to locate it on a Picatinny rail. Should note that these hip adjustments have stops here, so that the legs can't go past that pivot point. I'm not sure what's holding the tension on these legs. I think it's just a particularly tight fit. But anyway, the part that concerned me at first glance was this release lever, which releases this main clamp here on the yoke, so that when the bipod's deployed and the clamp and the mount is on the rifle, instead of it just being locked fully facing forwards, you can release this, and you can release this yoke, and it gives you a bit of pivot freedom so that you can move the rifle around whilst it's still supported on the bipod. But what initially concerned me was that it looks like this release lever hits the legs if they're in certain positions, so that you can't release the yoke to pivot the rifle around. But very cleverly, this lever has spring engagements, so it's I don't know what the correct term for this is. Is it a gated lock? So it's spring loaded. You can pull it out and reposition the lever, and then it clicks back in. So I can release it like that, and then pull it out, move it across, and twist it again, and it now frees off this yoke, which has big plastic pads in this groove here, so that you can slide the rifle, tilt it side to side a bit, and you'd be able to pivot slightly. So this lever definitely does hit these legs, but because it's adjustable, you can pull it out and reposition the lever to get the optimum position for tightening and loosening it, because this has got a very quick throw off. It's obviously quite a whatever thread they've used for this clamp is quite coarse, because you only have to move this thing about a quarter of a turn for you to be able to start sliding the mount around on the yoke. So that's quite clever. So you can tighten it back up again, and it's nice and solid. And then if you want this lever out the way, so this is being with that folded up, this would be on the rifle, it'd be in the stowed position, legs fully up and fully retracted, and the yoke tightened up. You don't want that lever sticking down like that, so you can actually just pull it out and pivot it round to any sort of quick release position, just there, that sort of thing, just so it lays flat against the body. And then when you actually want to throw it off, it clicks out to engage, and you just throw it across. Ooh, might we have to do it twice. This will be a lot easier once the legs are down, because it might not interfere as much. It seems that the lever needs perhaps one or two. I don't know, perhaps there's a sweet spot. Maybe it'll loosen off slightly. That gives you some freedom to pivot there, and then if I loosen this off all the way, or at least a few turns, you can see this clamp gets a lot looser, and that will mean that you'd be able to move the rifle around whilst it's still supported on the bipod. So overall, that's that 3, 4 to get it tight, clamp back up and then fold it out of the way. So overall, very solid bipod. You can tell it's still a budget option because things like the leg wobble here, the quality of these plastic feet. I assume these are plastic. I think I can scratch them. Yeah, I think they're just plastic. So I assume if you took these feet off, you'd just have the bare ends of these carbon fibre tubes. These look like quite cheap carbon fibre tubes as well. I don't think this has been lacquered, or at least it's got like a sort of satiny finish to it. I'm not sure how durable they'll be. They seem thick enough, as long as you don't tread on it just here when the leg's fully extended. Obviously it's going to be a lot more durable when it's retracted and it's got the steel, the aluminium leg inside it. This cost us about 70 quid. So the clamp's pretty good. This is all machined aluminium. It's nice and solid, you know. I assume this locator bolt and this locator bolt go from the hip, both go through into the main yoke assembly, so that's going to be nice and solid. This adjustment, a little bit of movement, but minimal really. It locks into place nicely. I assume if you got this wet and didn't dry it out, all these steel screws would start rusting. All of these, perhaps the springs. I would hope that the springs under here are stainless, but you know. So yeah, it's definitely still a budget bipod, but it's very chunky. It's very adjustable. You've got, what did I say? 8 plus 3, so the legs can only extend about 3 inches, so you go from 8 out to 11. I've got good angles here if you want to get the legs at different heights or different positions. This quick release yoke for the tilt feature does get in the way, but they've very cleverly made it adjustable, so there's definitely some thought gone into that. The whole thing feels oversized. It's quite heavy. I'd say this thing weighs at least 200 grams. Let me pause, I'll get the scales and tell you. Scales. Zero them out a bit. There we go. I'll pop this bad boy on. Good God, how am I going to make this sit on here? Let's put the ruler across. Zero ruler, and then we can balance this on the ruler perhaps. Nope, that's not going to work. Take it back off. I'll just put it up here and balance it. Hang on. Really? Man, I was talking out my arse. This thing weighs like over 600 grams. It's heavy as fuck. Damn, I guess that's what you get for all this chunky construction. I assume these legs are machined from solid. Yeah, there's no joint between this section and this section. These are machined as one piece, I think. There's no way that's unscrewing. So, yeah, very solid, but man, deceptively heavy. I would have thought this would be lighter, you know, especially for, you know, ordering it based on the fact it's got these nice, pretty carbon fibre legs. So the feet are pretty rubbish. There's a bit of rattle and wobble in the adjustment, but it's not going to actually move once it's extended out. You could quite happily slap a very heavy rifle on this bipod and it wouldn't break a sweat. It's heavy duty for sure. If I go and get a normal Harris bipod and do a side by side. So here's a normal imitation Harris bipod for size comparison. Oops. You can see this one is significantly wider and longer than the Harris. Flip it over that way. So this imitation Harris is it's pretty much all steel construction, still got cheap plastic feet. And this has seen many years of use, so maybe they won't be too bad. I wish they did some spiked or clawed options for this. I suppose I could make some myself, it wouldn't be that hard. Obviously you just have all the annoying springs, and this only has one set position. There's no pivot to it, there's no quick release. The extending legs, they're quite nice. Yeah, they're spring loaded if you want to drop them in a hurry. So that goes from the pivot about 6.5 inches, and then when you're fully extended goes out to 11. So this eBay copy of a Harris bipod actually has more adjustment for the length of the legs, but this CVLIFE carbon fibre option is certainly more adjustable for the angle of the legs, and the key thing is this adjustable yoke to give you a pan and tilt when the bipod's actually deployed, which is something I've definitely noticed is lacking for the Harris. Once you've got this bipod down, those legs stay in one position, and if you want to twist your gun to follow a moving target, you're going to have to drag the legs. At least with this one, if you're in a fairly fixed position, you can deploy the bipod, release the pan and tilt yoke, and you'll have a certain amount of freedom to pivot the gun. Let me do a weight comparison. Let's put this to one side. Put the Harris on the scales. So Harris bipod, just over 400 grams. So that CVLIFE thing is 50% heavier than the Harris, and quite a bit bigger than the Harris as well. So if you're looking to put kind of a relatively light, very simple bipod, then the Harris might be the one for you. It's lacking in adjustment, but it gives you some support. If you're looking for using a bipod that's significantly more adjustable and has the pan tilt yoke so that you can use it in a fixed position and has more angle to the legs, then this one might be the option for you. This is certainly something I'd put on sort of a range rifle. This is more the sort of thing you'd put on like an assault rifle, where you're just going to be you just want to quickly slap the legs down and pop them out so that you can drop down on your belly and get into a decent firing position with some support. This is the sort of thing where you want to spend a minute or so setting it up and get yourself in a really nice firing position, but it's not something that you can just slap down in a hurry, because let me put this on the stand. With the Harris, these legs being spring loaded, they just slap down like that. And when this is on a gun, you can literally just smack it and these things spring down, and then you press the button. This rusty old thing. Let's try the other one. Press the button, pop the legs out. Yeah, do the other one as well. That looks stupid. See, it's only spring loaded from the front here. One of the weaknesses. I suppose you can still do it with one hand. This one's just a little bit rusty through use. But the thing I found annoying with this is it's not QD. I suppose I guess you could slack off that wheel if you're brave enough, if you wanted some pan and tilt on the mount. But really that's just a clamp to attach this to this weaver mount. So So that'd give you your support. You could adjust the legs for different height, and then if you need to leave in a hurry, you just slap those legs back up into the folded position, and then when you get a minute, you pop them back down. So it's definitely a more basic bipod, whereas with this thing it's heavier, it's 50% heavier than the Harris, but I suppose you could still operate this one-handed. You can't just slap the legs up and down on this. They're not spring loaded. This is the sort of thing you'd have to spend a minute or so setting it up. So get your legs in the right position for the support that you want. Extend them out. You'd have yourself a nice solid bipod. That actually looks really nice, and especially if you slacked off the pan tilt yoke, this bipod would have a very solid firing position and still give you the ability to move the rifle around to trace targets without having to reposition the legs. But if you wanted to get up and leave in a hurry, you'd pretty much just have to leave this how it is, and then there's no quickly slapping it out the way. Fold these down, snap them back up, and you'd have to tighten the yoke as well. So you've got what, 5 operations you've got to do there: each leg, each hip, and the pan and tilt yoke. If you want to actually put it back into the folded position on the Harris, you just slap the legs up and down, so that's 2 operations, and then folding the legs back down into the retracted position, so another 2, I suppose. So that's 4 in total, really. But certainly slapping the spring-loaded legs on the Harris back up and down is a lot faster than trying to reposition these hip notched adjustments. Courses for courses. You can see how much bigger this carbon thing is than the Harris. It's massive, it almost fits inside it. So yeah, if you're planning to be in a more stationary position, this would be the bipod for you. If you want something quick, rugged, that you can just abuse and not worry about, slap it up and down. If it gets a bit creaky, you can just spray it with WD-40. Maybe the Harris would be for you. It's certainly lighter. The weight difference is noticeable. This is 400 grams because it's mainly steel, I think. Pretty sure these are steel tubes, or these fittings are steel. It certainly had rust in the past. I think this is just a pressed plate of steel. I think the mount itself, because this is, you can spin this off and that loosens the claw here and then separates it from this rail mount. I think that's aluminium. The mount itself that attaches is aluminium, which makes sense. You wouldn't want a steel one because it'd, you know, most of the rails on airsoft guns for sure are aluminium, so it'd be or plastic. You know, a steel one would make a bit of mess of them. So this is definitely more rugged and basic. This one is a little bit more advanced, perhaps not quite as quick and dirty because you can't slap it up and down. It does actually require a bit of thought, a bit of time to set this one up. That rattle on the legs really bothers me, but I don't suppose you'd notice it once it's actually in use. This locking adjustment on the legs, nice and solid. You're not going to have any problem operating that with gloves on. Certainly you saw the The adjustment for the leg length on the Harris, not quite as robust, I'd say. So the Harris has a little spring-loaded release button under here, and the collar that you're actually releasing for the leg notches is this piece that you're pressing, which is just steel, and these buttons for the spring release under here, I think they've got a little bit rusty over the years. Certainly, I think the housings that they're in, are they aluminium or plastic? I don't know. But you can see this one, it's a little bit rusty. I'm pushing it. That leg's a bit reluctant to spring out. A bit of rust, a bit of dirt in there. So the leg adjustment, not quite as robust as the one for the CVLIFE, and the way these big springs attach to the legs as well is just kind of a collar at an angle that's supposed to sit in this notch here on the leg, but you can see this one I think has got bent and kind of worked itself partially off the leg. So very kind of quick, dirty, but overall rugged construction for the Harris. This one definitely a bit more refined, a bit more expensive, definitely got more thought gone into it. It's wider for one, so it's going to be a more stable platform. There's not quite as much length adjustment on the legs, but I think you could put heavier rifles onto this and it wouldn't bounce around. You've got the hip adjustment and the pan and tilt yoke is a big one, because it means that the bipod can stay stationary when deployed. So yeah, two different bipods for two different types of guns, I think there. You can definitely tell that this is still sort of a budget bipod, Chinese, but the construction is about 25% chunkier than I expected from what I'd seen in the pictures. So overall, I'm impressed. I think this is going to go very well on the sniper rifle that we're putting together. This one can remain for use on my LMG, my Stoner light machine gun, because that's a heavy beast and it gets into a lot of stationary firing positions, but I run around with it, so this bipod is ideally suited. You know, you can just slap the legs up and down. It's a big gun. You can drop down on your belly, get this thing deployed. Good to go with a firing position. This one, you'd use it on a sniper rifle or something long range, accurate, where you're not that bothered about running around that quickly with it, because this thing is pretty heavy. But you could get yourself a really nice firing position with this bipod. Slack off the collar, just pivot your rifle around without the bipod itself really having to move. Ooh, little solar powered fidget spinner just going in the background there. Surprising for how miserable of a day it is. Okay, I'll wrap it up there. Thanks for watching.